Bringing the news and information you need from the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood. This is a special edition of Comcast Newsmakers.
Hi, Spiro Kenton, welcoming you back to Newsmakers here at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. We're poolside. I guess the stuff you hear in the background is laughter as well as the waterfall behind us. Kind of a nice cheery setting for somewhat a gloomy subject every now and then. Dr. Sherrie Bourg Carter is a forensic psychologist, and you deal with really the criminal mind, and you've had some high-profile cases you've taken a look at. One was a serial killer, actually, wasn't it?
That's correct.
And this, how do you get into the mind and how do you evaluate that sort of activity?
Well, we have some tools that we use. We go in and we do an interview with the person. We also use psychological tests that give us some sense of how the person functions, what their personality is like, and then we look at the evidence. You know, we look at the facts of the case and what witnesses have to say about how the person was behaving around the time of the crime. And then we use all of that to come to a determination whether someone was legally insane or not.
And I think the high profile we're talking about here was they made a movie out of it called Monster with Charlize Theron, and apparently this was a real person that you looked at and you spoke to as well.
That was a real case. That was a tragic case all the way around. Many, many people died. She was a serial killer, but she also was severely mentally ill. And those cases are difficult for both sides.
This was kind of a black and white case. I mean, it was pretty evident this person was mentally disturbed.
Well, there's always different opinions in forensic psychology. Some felt that she was personality disordered, and a lot of times that's not considered mentally disturbed in the eyes of the law. And other people felt that she was severely mentally ill.
And what was the final determination?
Well, the way I got involved in that case was she was on death row, and she wanted to waive all of her appellate rights. She wanted to get rid of her lawyers. She didn't want them to represent her anymore. She wanted to die, basically. Mm-hmm. Whenever that happens, there has to be a hearing to make sure the person's competent to waive counsel. And that's how I got involved in the case.
And the final result was?
The judge found that she was competent to waive counsel, and she went to death row.
Was that your opinion as well?
Actually, no, it was not. I felt that she was too mentally unstable at that point in time.
Interesting. How do you differ from a regular psychologist?
Well, forensic psychologists are very much like detectives of the mind. We go in, investigate a legal issue, and try to come to some determination as to whether that person meets a certain legal criteria based on all the evidence put in front of us.
So you don't have to know the law as well?
You have to know the law, and you have to know psychology really well, and I'll tell you why. Because people who are charged with crimes sometimes try to look like they're mentally ill when they're really not.
Really?
Of course, yeah.
And you can usually see through that facade.
Well, there are methods to determining whether someone's malingering, which is our lingo, but faking is what we normally call it.
Lionel Tate was another high-profile case
Correct.
You took a look at. What was your final determination on him?
In that case, of course, there were so many twists and turns. One of them was competency. Was the 12-year-old competent? It was my opinion that he was competent. And then the other issue had to do with his intellect, his IQ, whether it was mentally retarded or not. It was not. It clearly was in a low average range, but not mentally retarded. And of course, they had the big wrestling defense issue that revolved around wrestling and professional wrestling.
So your I guess, findings were somewhat supported by the court.
Supported by the court, correct.
Now, are you working on any high-profile cases right now?
I am working on a few high-profile cases. I'm consulting on a couple of murder cases.
Every time the phone rings, you must kind of go, oh gosh, what disaster is waiting on the other end of the line.
Well,
right?
I tell people all the time, when my phone rings, it's never good news. It's always bad news. It's good for the practice, but it's usually bad news for someone.
All right, well, thank you very much, Dr. Sherrie Bourg Carter, forensic psychologist, our guest this hour on Comcast Newsmakers on the Road. I'm Spiro Kenton. Thanks for joining us.
The preceding has been a special presentation of Comcast Newsmakers from the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood. And now, back to CNN Headline News.